grimaced at the sight of Grandsir's remains, and beckoned to Arlen. "Come on, lad," he said. "We'll get you out of here." Arlen scrambled to his feet. "Thank you," he said. The man picked him up and hoisted him, and Arlen stretched out his hand. The other man, the one in the leather coat, caught them and hauled. A moment later, Arlen was standing in the ruins of his family's kitchen. He looked around in horror. The walls and roof and most of the furnishings were gone, save for scorched fallen beams and drifted ash. The stone wall was strewn with debris. The rest of the village had fared no better. Arlen looked out a blasted, blackened wasteland, scoured of every sign of life, as dead as the clear in the mountain's peak. No structure still stood any higher than his head. The fragmentary walls of the pantry were among the tallest remaining. A strong wind was blowing, carrying away lingering dust and smoke and heat. The air was still warm, but no longer thick and hot. Half a dozen people were moving through the rooms. Behind Arlen, the man in the leather coat was talking to the man in the canvas vest. Nearby, the man who had peered over the wall was poking through the crumbled remains of Arlen's parents' bedroom. 3 other people, a man and 2 women, were scattered about the village on foot. One was seated upon a horse in the little plaza at the center of town, overseeing everything. Over at the head of the path down the mountain stood a wagon, unattended at the moment, with a pair of draft horses in the traces. Arlen had never seen a horse-drawn wagon before. That established beyond question that these people were not from the vicinity of the Smoky Mountain. Around here, wagons were pulled by oxen. No one would waste horses on such a task. "Where is everybody?" Arlen asked, his voice unsteady. His eyes were wet again, stinging with lingering smoke and tears. The man on horseback turned to stare at him. Arlen stood back and started trembling. This must be Lord Dragon, he realized, and the man's intense, wordless stare did indeed remind Arlen of the expression he had seen on the face of the dragon that killed Grandsir. The horsemen were finely dressed in black, trimmed with elaborate gold embroidery. Tall leather boots, a dashing, broad-brimmed hat cocked to one side, and trailing golden feathers down behind his one shoulder. His face was thin and dark, and on his right cheek, the one partly concealed by the hat, was heavily scarred. Old, ugly scars that looked as if a handful of flesh had once been ripped away and left the heel untreated. He wore no beard and affectation. Arlen had heard of but never seen before, and his mustache was trimmed to a narrow, curving black line. The black scabbard slapped back against one of his thighs and the horse's flank, and Arlen realized that the man carried a sword. Arlen had never seen a sword. Only lords or professional guards carried swords, and the village had had neither. This black-garbed man was clearly an actual lord. "Come here, boy," the horseman said in a cold, deep voice that Arlen recognized, the voice that had told him to shut up. Hesitantly, Arlen picked his way across the kitchen floor and out into the village street, until he stood by the rider's boot, looking up at the scarred face. "Your village is dead," the horseman said. "Don't get your hopes up that your friends or family might still live. Dragons allow no escapes. Unless there are other cellars or tunnels, you are the only survivor." Arlen could not reply. "We're counting skulls when we find them," the rider said. "We may miss some, but you'll know that most of them died at the very least. Take my word for it, boy." They all died. One survivor is a miracle. 2 would be impossible. Arlen felt tears running down his cheeks, but still couldn't speak. "Now, do you know where any valuables might be? Where was the chief workshop? I have uses for obsidian back in Manfort, or perhaps your village sorcerer might have a few precious possessions." "I don't know," Arlen managed to say. His voice was a husky whisper. The horseman frowned. "You don't know where they work the black glass?" Arlen pressed his lips tight to keep from wailing and shook his head. Lord Dragon looked up and scanned the ruins quickly. Arlen dropped his gaze, and a teardrop rolled down his nose and dropped to the dust at his feet. His family was dead. His mother, his father, Corian, and Grandsir, of course. He had seen Grandsir's body and knew beyond question that the old man was dead. The other deaths didn't seem quite real yet. But he had seen the house, he had seen the village, he had heard Lord Dragon's words. And who was this Lord Dragon? Arlen looked up again, and as he did, he caught sight of a sack lying by the horse's front hooves. He turned to glimpse part of it, and glimpsed part of its contents through the open top, and recognized some of the items. Old Gurnian's golden plate, now smeared with wet black ash, but still unmistakable. Boronil's crystal cups, handed down in our family for a century or more. The obsidian clock-faced cash card he had been working on. They were all thrown in together, and Arlen suddenly realized who Lord Dragon and his men were. Looters, human vultures, come to pick clean the bones the dragons had left. He looked up, and his eyes met Lord Dragon's gaze. The horseman's eyes were deep and dark, sucking in their sockets, with dark brown iris and almost no white. There were cold and empty eyes that seemed to be studying Arlene as if there were no more. They had. They were studying Arlene as if he were no more than a stone in the path. What's going to become of me? Arlene asked. Unless you have a rich kin somewhere who might pay a ransom, Lord Dragon replied calmly, I believe we'll sell you. You look strong enough, and I know a mining company that always uses another strong back. But I'm not a slave, Arlene protested. You are now, Lord Dragon replied, in a voice like the boom of a warning bell that now lay broken and half-melted 100 yards away. Outrage welled up in Arlene's heart. He had done nothing wrong. He had been born free and did not deserve slavery. But, you're ours by right of salvage, Lord Dragon said, cutting him off. This village and everything in it has been abandoned, so by ancient custom belongs to whosoever claims it first. I am claiming it, and thereby I claim you. Now, boy, unless you have something to offer me in exchange, I'll hear no more argument. You're mine, and this village is mine. Lord Dragon straightened in the saddle. Do you have anything to offer me? Are there any hidden treasures, perhaps? A secret cache in that cellar of yours? No, Arlene admitted. But you do know where the workshops were, I'm sure. Now, will you tell us readily, or must we be it out of you? Arlene hesitated and was suddenly aware that the man in the brown leather coat had come up behind him and was standing not a yard away from him. I'd tell him, the man said. Arlene hesitated, looking from Lord Dragon to the man on foot and back. He glanced at the bag of stolen valuables at the horse standing placidly at the long, slim sword on Lord Dragon's left hip and the long, heavy knife on his right, and the merciless calm of Lord Dragon's expression. I can show you, Arlene said. He had no choice. It was not that he feared a beating or even death. If Lord Dragon killed him, at least it would be over, and he would not be facing the prospect of a life spent laboring in the mine somewhere. No, it was that if he died, he could never do anything to fix what had been done here. The dragons had swept in and destroyed everything, slain everyone for no reason. No one in the village had ever harmed or threatened him in any way. No one there had deserved to die, but they had all died the same. And this man, this Lord Dragon, had no right to come up here and claim everything as his own. He had done nothing to earn this place. He had taken no risk. He had not sweated and labored to wrench the black stone from the mountain and shape it into human use. He had not started Arlene, nor raised him, nor even purchased him, yet he now claimed him as mere property. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and it was Arlene's duty as the sole survivor of those who had been wronged to fix it, to make it better somehow. His parents had taught him that since he was a baby, wrongs had to be put right somehow. Arlene saw it clearly. Lord Dragon and his looters were stealing, and someone had to punish them for it. The 3 dragons had killed innocent people. Someone had to kill them to make it fair. His mother had said there was no more dragons. Arlene wanted to do something he could do to make that belief come true. He had no idea how it might be done, no real hope of ever accomplishing it. But somehow he knew he must come to fix it somehow, and he couldn't do it if he were dead. So for now he would do as he was told, and someday he would have his chance. Someday he would find a way to repair this wrong. This way, he said, and he led the man in brown to where the village workshops had stood. Alright then, that's the end of chapter 4. Woo! Yay! Chapter 3, I said 4. I'm beginning to start chapter 4. Close enough, whatever. In any case, I do hope you guys enjoy my reading. I do hope you guys can hear me fairly well. Just, turn up your volume if you can't hear me. I do test them to make sure that people can at least hear me if you turn up the volume. If it's to where I'm talking too low and mumbling, I will delete and start over again. Just give me comments. Thank you very much.